has to get it right here. Kipchoge there.
Yeah, talking of redlining, we just got a glimpse there of the blue line, which is painted on the road surface. That's the shortest line, the official line, and they'll try and keep as close to that blue line as they can. So the three pacemakers with Kipkemboy in the cap, the man in charge, doing lots of directing. He's doing a fine job here. This is the chasing group, about 30 seconds behind, around 200 meters. And then Amanal Petros there, further back, with one or two other athletes for company. And just to remind you, his goal today, trying to get through in around 2:04. That would be comfortably inside the Olympic qualifying time.
There, the lead woman, Assefa, tucked in, and plenty of the other top females alongside her, or around her, I should say. Sheila Chepkirui, you can see in the black beyond her, 31:45 at 10K, the lead women. Well, let me tell you that when the world record, or rather, she set her course record here last year, she went through 10K in 32:25. So she is 40 seconds quicker at 10K than last year is Assefa. She got to halfway last year in 68:12. She's on schedule to go through halfway in, well, about a minute and a half quicker than that at the moment. She is really shifting along with this big women's pack. And Chris, interesting, isn't it, that so many of these women are with her, and she's running at about 2:14 tempo, actually pretty much world record tempo.
Yes, and just to remind you of that world record, 2:14.04, Bridget Kosgei set in Chicago in 2019. And then, as Tim mentioned earlier on, we've had two performances in the last 12 months just outside that 2:14.18, Ruth Chepngetich in Chicago, and Amani Beriso, 2:14.58. So the third fastest time in history set by Assefa here 12 months ago is now only the fifth fastest time. It's still brilliant, but she's on for something better than that so far. And looking comfortable, looking really comfortable.
Well, I'm just looking at Bridget Kosgei. She went through 10K in 31:28 when she set her world record. She blasted through the first half in Chicago 2019. 31:28. They've gone through here in 31:45. A more measured first 10K. Indeed, Bridget Kosgei went through halfway in 66:59 in Chicago 4 years ago. I don't think we're going to see a sub-67 first half here unless they go berserk in this second 10K segment. But it's probably more measured and more sensible running, I think. So we shall see. Of course, Kosgei, when she broke the world record, smashed the world record by 81 seconds back in 2019, Chris. Ran positive splits. She ran, you know, a very quick first half and then a slightly slower second half. Negative splits is more common nowadays.
Yeah, as we were mentioning with Kipchoge a few minutes ago. So the leading men approaching 13 kilometres. They're on the most easterly part of the course so far, out in Friedrichshain, and they'll start to move southward towards Neukölln, for those of you who know Berlin well, and then into Kreuzberg and Schöneberg, taking in all the main districts of the German capital. All the while, the surprise for us so far, Dersa Kindi is still there on the shoulder of Kipchoge, looking comfortable. Doesn't look stressed at all, does he, for a 2:08 man?
And I suspect Eliud Kipchoge, to an extent, is wondering who the heck he is, but actually Eliud will be tunnel visioned. He'll be thinking about his own race, how he feels about the tempo. I'm sure he'll be computing in a relaxed manner what the splits mean that he's seeing as he goes through 5K and 10K. He knows things are going okay. And actually, maybe less than I'm saying he's thinking about it, because he has to trust those pacemakers, and he will be getting some information from the sidelines shouted at him too.
Yeah, we think of Guy Adola a few years ago when he was up on the shoulder and actually went past Kipchoge at 40 kilometres, and the look almost of disdain from Kipchoge on that day. Who are you and what are you doing here this late in the race? And then he just burnt off, almost impudent. We've got a long way to go. I think if Kindi is still with Kipchoge at 40 kilometres, then we have a story. Over the Spree, again for the second time, approaching 13 kilometres, and they are knocking out metronomic 250, 251, that sort of kilometre time and time again.
Well, he's a couple of hundred metres ahead of the chasing group now. There's Kipchoge. Just looking up Kindi, as he's gotten his number, by the way. There's another version of his name, Cassie Dursa, 24 years old. He's run a couple of marathons. He actually debuted in Hamburg back in 2021. He was 5th in 2:17, and then he won San Sebastian that same year in 2:12. And then last year, 10th in Barcelona with that personal best of 2:08, and then 2nd in Cape Town in 2:11. And then he dropped out of Doha Marathon earlier on this year. So there's a little bit of experience in those legs. He's had 5 marathon starts, and he's gradually improved. Those 4 marathons he's finished, 2:17, 2:12, 2:08, 2:11. So what he's doing here, moving at sub-2-hour tempo, goodness only knows.
Well, it's extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, we hope he finishes the race, but that is such a big difference to the tempo that he's normally used to running at. You just wonder whether he's at some stage going to start to blow up. The chasing group getting further away.
มีความแม่นยำสูงในการวิ่งนะครับเดี๋ยวเราจะมาดูที่สปีดไทม์ถัดไปนะครับปีที่แล้วเนี่ยวิ่งอยู่ที่42นาที33วินาทีนะครับปีที่แล้วนะครับวิ่งอยู่ที่42นาที33วินาทีสำหรับ15กิโลเมตรนะครับเดี๋ยวปีนี้ดูว่าเดี๋ยวผมจะคอยบอกนะว่าช้าไปหรือว่าเร็วไปกว่าปีที่แล้วนะครับก็ค่อยๆลุ้นไป
So far so good, Tim. He's looking good, isn't he? I mean, facially gives nothing away. That tunnel vision you referred to is absolutely there, complete focus.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, you know, you can break down Kipchoge's running style, and everybody's running style is different, and it works for them, so to speak. But some coaches will say, well, he bounces too much. There's too much time in the air. He's not a floater, as you would say. He's a powerful runner, is Eliud Kipchoge, but he has that musculature, wonderfully muscled legs, beautifully proportioned legs. Still looks like a track runner, doesn't it? You know, you look at those, the muscular shape for Kipchoge, second to left, and you sort of feel, yeah, there's a guy who can run a really quick 1,500 metres, and he probably could.
Yeah.
Frankly, I suspect if he turned his attentions to it, he could go back to the track and run turn out some pretty good performances.
Just a word on the shoes. We're getting a good shot of them there. He was asked about shoes in the press conference briefly, and specifically about carbon plate shoes. And he said he normally uses those for his speed work and tempo runs and the long runs, and will have a different pair for race day. Slightly slower last kilometre, 2:54, and we stress that's no bad thing. We're quietly trying to just hope that he comes in halfway in something more sensible than last year. Just to remind you, that was 59:51. So 40 minutes of running, and they're already on their way to the 15th kilometre. Last year, the 15-kilometre split was 42-32. So that's our next major milestone.
Well, let me tell you that the women through 12K after a 3:07, and they're approaching 13K, are on 2:13.40 pace. They're on schedule, world record schedule at the moment in that women's race. And the bizarre thing, and we'll see them again in a minute, I'm sure, is just how big that women's pack is. There's half a dozen or so women at least in that lead pack, with many national standard German runners around them, moving at under 2:14 pace. That's a world record, remember, by Bridget Kosgei back on the 9th of October 2019. It was 2:14.04. That is the target for that women's pack. I think we can say that now. The halves for Kosgei were 66.59 and 67.05. So she was...
Here in Paris, just to remind you, no athlete has ever won 3 Olympic marathons. Bibi Bikili won in Rome 1960-64. Waldemar Czapinski, the East European.
How did Kindi almost run into the back of Kipchoge? The Kipchoge cut across him, I guess, and you could see the official there in that corner, about 100 metres back, shouting at them, go right a bit, go right a bit. The drinks are just after this bend. Kipchoge cut across right, ran across the front of Kindi, who had to chop his stride there.
Yeah, you won't thank him for that. I mean, you mentioned the point about how packed the women are. You'd have thought they've got plenty of space here, but they are running quite close to each other, even with all the space they've got. But that's the singleness of purpose, isn't it, of Eliud Kipchoge. And just going back to the Olympics, he said, there's something boiling in my stomach, that desire to get into the history books and become the first marathon runner to win 3 Olympic titles. Extraordinary achievement that would be. And this, I think, Tim, will give us some sort of indication post-Boston as to kind of what shape he's in at the moment.
There we are, 42.45, Chris, at 15K. And in his world record, he was 42.33. But we know he was too quick through last year, through the first half of the race. So that is probably just about perfect. 42.45 for Kipchoge and Kindi.
Yeah, it feels as though he's slipping back on last year, but we should just, again, reiterate that last year in the first half of the race probably cost him valuable seconds. He still knocked 30 seconds, of course, off the world record last year, but at one point he was heading for a much bigger margin than that. So about 12 seconds outside the tempo from last year.
Yeah, 42.33 last year, and he's gone from 42.45, so he's, well, about 8 seconds, 10 seconds slower than last year. It is a nice adjustment. It's the sort of little tweak that was needed to the over-ambitious running over the first hour 12 months ago. Kindi, well, I wonder how long he'll last, Chris. Is it just a matter of time, or is he going to shock us and stay there through halfway and 30K and so on? He's checking his watch there. Looking good. He's a big lad, a little bit taller than...
Kipchoge is surprisingly short. He's only 5'6", 5'7". His fighting weight is around 52 kilos. I mean, that's pretty light. 115 pounds in old money. Great crowds you can see gathering and getting thicker and thicker. We should also mention the bands as well, who are strategically placed at different parts of the course.
There's that big women's pack that we've talked about. It's actually quite hard to pick out how many women are in that women's pack. Agnieszka Desa is to the right there, just in the white vest, sort of tucked in behind. So Assefa very much to the fore there, left of picture. Won 7 out of races last year. She felt terrible in the Riyadh Marathon in her debut, said she felt ill, but wanted the experience. That's why she carried on. That was back in March last year, where she was 7th in 2:34. And then, of course, just blew our minds last year with that 18-minute improvement from 2:34 to 2:15.37 to win in Berlin in a massive course record. Desa, we can see more clearly there now to the right of this group, the 31-year-old. She's a 2:18 performer, was 4th here last year. She's in her 13th marathon, plenty of experience, and she's actually running her 3rd marathon of this year. She was 4th in Tokyo in 2:20 back in early March, and then she won Prague back in May, the Prague Marathon in the glorious Czech capital in 2:20. Funnily enough, she's one of those athletes who is absolutely focused on the marathon distance, Desa. She doesn't run half marathons generally. Her personal best in a half marathon is
7 or 8 of the elite women all together. It's quite a bunch, and of course we've got male pacemakers also in the mix there. It's a very different scene, isn't it, at the start of at the head of the women's race than at the men's. But Assefa there, very nice, easy style, slightly forward leaning.
always that jostling for positions around the drink stations. Assefa and Desa
and
getting there is okay, I think.
Sorry to cut in. We've seen it done wrongly so many times, haven't we? So many big athletes. You think like someone like Mo Farah, who made the transition from track to road and took a long time to get the drinks
I
correctly.
love that, Chris. To the left of picture, Assefa grabs a drink and then passes it to one of her pacemakers. Gebru, the racer, helping out the pacemaker. There's a new one.
Yeah. Like a snack, maybe a banana?
But she wants to be able to ensure that he does as good a job as possible for her. The gesture from her will be returned with interest, I suspect, over this next hour or so. 15K, 47.26. Now, 2:14 tempo would be 47.37, so they're 10 seconds inside. So they're about 11 seconds inside world record average tempo at the moment. Her splits here last year, her 15K split was 48.43. And she has just gone through, let me remind you, through 15K in 47.27. So she is, wow, way ahead of last year's schedule. She's over a minute quicker than last year at 15K.
Incredible. Well, at the moment, we are looking for not one, but two world records still on the table here. There's confirmation of the women, so 13 seconds inside world record pace. And we already know that Eliud Kipchoge is also inside world record pace, his own world record set here 12 months ago, 2:01.09.
Just looking at the splits that Brigid Kosgei ran when she set her current world record 4 years ago. Remember, today they've just gone through in 47.27. Kosgei in her world records 47.26. Oh, you couldn't script it, could you?
Unbelievable.
Almost identical to the, within 1 second of each other at 15K after 47 minutes of running.
A breakaway here. Assefa and Adessa have opened up some daylight, Tim.
Yeah, they have, and that big pack, well, it seemed like that drink station a couple of minutes ago is what really broke it up. That so often happens. You quite often see packs break up around the drink station, a little bit of chaos as athletes jostle for position, try to get their bottles, and then things gradually concertina and they come back together in the following 2 or 3 minutes. But this, I'd like to see the camera pull back so we can see the main group behind these athletes. There we go. There is a gap, and a significant gap, back to the chasing pack. So we now have a breakaway. You're right, Chris. Assefa and Adessa. Assefa in uncharted territory, albeit only a minute or so, maybe a couple of minutes quicker than last year. But Adessa, well, her personal best when she was 4th here last year, a long way behind Assefa, is 2:18.51. So she's running about 5 minutes quicker than she's ever run before. And that is a big chunk. She's going to get to halfway, some 2.5 minutes faster than she's ever been to.
It's the Berlin effect, Tim. It does it to you, doesn't it? It does strange things. Pancake flat, perfect weather. Okay, you know, the sun's not out, but they don't want the sun out. It could rise, by the way, to about 20 degrees later today, but that'll be after the elite runners have long finished. And then you have to feel for the 47,000 plus runners behind them, because they will be running in completely different conditions. But for the elite, they can probably get home and hosed in optimum conditions. Women through 16K.
Men through 17K with a 2:52. The 16th kilometre was a 2:48. So, and the 15th kilometre, 2:54. So a few little shifts up and down in tempo. But 17K with a 2:52, and that 15K split for the member, 42.44. And if they were on 2-hour pace, they'd be on 42.37. So he was 7 seconds outside 2-hour tempo at 15K, Eliud Kipchoge. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's just about perfect. It'll make him 10 or 12 seconds outside 2-hour tempo at halfway. In other words, 60-10, 60-15, something around there. And then hopefully he'll have the reserves to come back with a negative split. Could we see, Chris, I mean, we're talking about it sort of in roundabout way, not only a course record, but a 2-hour clocking this morning. We have to start talking about that because they're approaching halfway and they're within shooting distance of that, so to speak.
Well, I think we should just stay calm, but it is on the table. There's no doubt about it. And of course, 1:59.40 was the timer in 2019. It wasn't recognized as an official race. It was more an experiment to see if it was humanly possible to run a marathon, 26.2 miles, 42.2K in under 2 hours. And Eliud Kipchoge proved that under certain conditions that was, but it's not a world record.
Well, Chris, I'm not sure why, but that 16th kilometre after 15K in 47.27, pretty much on exactly the same schedule as the virtual Brigid Kosgei, who could be running alongside them at 15K. The 16th kilometre at 2:59 for the women.
Well, the handbikers have just gone through the results there. 1-2 for France, Josef Fritsch and Johan Kai coming through in just outside an hour ahead of Vico Merklein from Germany. So the handbikers who set off a little bit earlier than the wheelchair racers and the able-bodied runners. And that's a great result for the men. A France 1-2 coming over the finish line just a few minutes ago.
Well, a gap appearing now back to Edessa. The fourth placer last year maybe has just had one slug too many in this second of 5 rounds, so to speak, if it were a boxing match, because that 16th kilometre, excuse me, by far the quickest so far. They've been averaging, well, pretty much about 3:10 per kilometre, and then the 16th kilometre at 2:59. So incredibly quick for the women's just after 15k. And Assefa maybe wanted this. Maybe she wanted just ease away and be able to relax, not worry about opposition, about her race so much as her own performance. That's a critical difference.
Ominously, Tim, a little smile, a little grimace just appeared on the face of Eliud Kipchoge, which tells us two things. One, he's comfortable, and two, it's probably starting to hurt. That's his trademark smile, and now he's gone back to his neutral expression, just utterly focused on the tarmac in front of him. He's barely acknowledged the presence of Kindi to his left, who, according to the script and all the stats, has no business to be there based on what he's done before. But of course he is there, and he's looking comfortable too. A reminder, his 5th marathon, and he's a 2:08 marathon runner, and here he is approaching halfway and still on the shoulder of the great Eliud Kipchoge.
Just a word of warning, Chris, the 18th kilometre for Kipchoge, 2:56. That's the slowest of the race so far. And the 19th kilometre has just come through at 2:54. So, he's been running, I mean, the 8th kilometre is at 2:51 and then at 2:52, 2:50. He's been averaging about 2:50, 2:51. His last 3 kilometre splits, 2:52, 2:56, 2:54. There's been a little bit of a slowing this last 3K. We'll watch that. They're coming up to 20K, as you can see, bottom left of the screen. And then the halfway split will be hugely significant.
Yeah, 56.44, incidentally, was the 20K split last year, 12 months ago. Apologies if you're being bombarded and assaulted by lots of numbers here, but I think when, as Tim said, when you're watching an event where marginal gains are so important, you can read into how this race may unfold by the figures that we're bringing you.
Well, they have now gone through 19 kilometres. As I said, that was a 2:54. Kipchoge focused on the road ahead. Kindi to the right there in the white vest and red shorts, tucked in behind Chepkwony. Hanging in there, and he's going to go through halfway in just outside 60 minutes, I think. And he looks superb. Now, he has run under 60 minutes for a half marathon, so he is a class performer, is Kindi. But there is still an element of mystery around this fellow, whose best is outside 2:08, and he's operating at a tempo about 8 minutes quicker than that.
Incredible. Incredible he's still there. So in 2018, Kipchoge went through halfway in 61:06, and last year 59:51. So we'll keep an eye on that. We're now looking at, what, about 400 meters almost exactly between the leading men, Kipchoge and Kindi, and the chasing group, which includes, and we haven't spoken, Tim, about him for a little while now, Amos Kipruto. There he is, who's
ถือยังมีระบบสั่นคุยกับเธอทุกวันใจไม่สั่นได้ไง
Ja, Manövers. Hej! Hej! Ja, ongelooflijk hè. Ja, putar Manövers, putar Malik Nevers loh. Putar Malik Nevers sebut. Ja, putar Nevers. Iets kini naar buiten, iets kini naar buiten. Oké, die zit goed hè. Ja.
Bridget Cosgrove split up over 659. She's nearly 40 seconds ahead of Cosgrove, and we all thought Cosgrove splits 4 years ago were insane. We thought, what's she playing at? We never expected, of course, the world record from Paul Radcliffe, that was some 16 years old back then, to be hammered by over a minute in Chicago. And today, I don't think too many have been expecting the world record of Cosgrove to be broken, but at the moment, things are going incredibly well for Tigist Sefa, and Sheila Chepkirui, the Kenyan 32-year-old with vested 2 at 17, is some way back now. So let's just...
lange. Ja. Ja, ja, dat moet je nog een keer vragen, hè. Dat daar aan Jan.
Touching my limit
Championships where Germany topped the medal table, and he ran 2:10.39 there to finish just outside the medals. And I think it was Richard Ringer, wasn't it, who won the marathon in Munich at those European Championships. And what a contrast. I mean, just a quick word about the ups and downs of German athletics. Not a single medal, the German athletics team, at those World Championships in Budapest just a few weeks ago. I don't know if there's been massive post-mortems as to what